Welcome to Ask Me How I Know, multifamily real estate investing stories of struggle to success, where each week unscripted interviews with guests bring a fresh perspective to problem solving in the multifamily niche as well as feed your mindset. Success stories are great, but everyone knows the important part of the story, the part between the struggles of starting and arriving, and it often gets left out. Ask Me How I Know is like the back house of a restaurant. Pass through the prim and proper front of the house and join us in the harmonious chaos of the back of the house where honest, unscripted conversations take place and transformation happens. In life and investing, there are no shortages of wild scenarios, so no matter where you are in your investment journey, this podcast is for you. There is no pomp and fanfare here, just endless opportunity to build your investing and mindset playbooks. This is your retreat to breathe, build, and laugh. Welcome to Ask Me How I Know. I'm Julie Holly, and I'm happy you're here.
With me, his name is George O'Brien, and he is going to bring so much value to this. We just got done having a little bit of a pre-conversation, and I've already enjoyed that. And I can't wait for you guys to unearth and kind of get some other insight into this investing process. And George, oh my gosh, you and your wife, I mean, like, you guys took a lot of risks and a lot of gamble to take this whole other step going into multifamily investing. Why?
Well, I think we were just tired of the rat race, and we both have graduate degrees, and have really good paying W-2 jobs that we were very, very passionate about, but it just wasn't enough. It was we were constantly budgeting and sitting down and talking about, was this purchase I want or a need? And I grew up in construction, grew up on a farm in South Central PA, and was always doing this or that with different uncles and aunts, and learning different trades. And so I've always been pretty handy. And so I said, 4 years ago this spring, we jumped into the multifamily aspect of real estate, and I haven't looked back since. We've been, a landlord investor since 2009. We had 2 single-family homes back in South Central Pennsylvania that we managed from 3.5 hours away. We've had really good success with those, but we knew we wanted to get into multifamily, and we jumped into it, and it's been full steam ahead since.
Oh man, we had some single family assets, and we've managed them from like crossover divides and things like that. And it's interesting. People would always say, like, how can you possibly, manage something from 1,200 miles away? But I mean, if you have the right tenants in place, and you manage your, you take care of the little nitty gritty stuff and stay in contact, it's amazing. Did you guys find that with your, just 3 hours away?
Yeah, it's about developing, an expectation, and how the tenants communicate with you about things that they want to invest. Any more people can take a video or take a picture and send it to you, and we're pretty fortunate. We have family there in the area, so my mom went and showed the place, had an open house, and she told me, I really like this person, I really like that person. And, then my father or stepfather would go and, help do a little odds and ends if the tenants needed it. And so it's, they always say, either invest locally or invest somewhere where you have, a support in place and a team in place. So
Boots on the ground makes a big difference. I'm
that's
just
it.
adding aside for listeners that if you're in, because I think we might see a lot of migration, a lot of change after we come out of this state of pandemic and everything. And if you happen to find yourself moving geographically and you don't want to sell your, where you live, but you're nervous about that, you can always have a property management company place a tenant for you. That's a nice little cushion. I know when we always would have interview property management companies and make sure we knew ace in the hole, we know where we can go, but
You're right.
worst case scenario. But okay,
Absolutely.
you and your wife, you're over here. I want to do this. I want to do that. You have your punch list of projects and different goals that you want to do financially, and it's like, wait, how are we going to get that done? So you guys kind of, it sounds like you felt like you were spinning your wheels a bit, and then it's like, all right, there's another way, but you chose suffering. You guys chose to go down like this path of like, okay, it's gonna get tough. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so we were fortunate. We found a home here in the Pittsburgh market that we immediately had some equity in, and again, I had the skill sets to get in and update the property and add some value, and we refinanced our primary mortgage into a more aggressive line of credit, and we pulled some resources out of that line of credit and purchased our first three properties. We bought three duplexes and did all the work ourselves. And what we just kept doing is the burr method, is to buy, renovate, rent, refinance, and then repeat. So we didn't even know what the burr method was. It was just that made sense. But I called in a lot of favors. My father, my buddies, friends, people from here in the Pittsburgh area all came, and we were all doing these things together. And by the time we got to,
Kind of talk about this, George. Did you talk about this as like a bonding experience to them? Did you say, "Hey guys, come help me. Let's do some manly bonding"?
yeah, they read right through that. I didn't even bother. I just say, hey, listen, I'll owe you, So, but that's kind of how we were raised. We all did it. I've been there plenty of times for my family and friends, and that's kind of just how we are, and that continues still to this day.
And and if some people might not have family like that, but I mean, you can definitely develop friendships and relationships like that. That gotta give, gotta give in order
That,
to dip into the pool.
it comes back tenfold most times.
It really does. So you guys really got uncomfortable with that, and you were talking about some of the, just kind of creative financing that you guys used in order to, really be the engine behind this. Like, so it sounds like did you guys get a HELOC on your house?
We did. Yep.
Okay, how uncomfortable? Seriously, because I think a lot of people are probably toying with this. Like how uncomfortable was that for you guys? And can you walk us through the little nuances of things?
Yeah, my wife's a little bit more conservative. I'm a lot more aggressive. I look at debt is not necessarily a bad thing. Everybody was raised, you know, own your home outright. Don't take out financing. But through just learning about real estate and equity, and having good equity in your home, it's actually good debt, especially from a tax standpoint. And so we got uncomfortable, and I told my wife, listen, we can continue to have these uncomfortable budget meetings once a month, and maybe hold back on some of our goals from a travel standpoint, renovation of our homes, and providing for our children, or we can get uncomfortable, and we can get into real estate, something that I'm passionate about, and we've had a good success rate in my job here in the area. My W-2, I've seen there's a lot of opportunities. I was hearing a lot about poor ownership, poor landlords. That some of the people that were living in our market just didn't have really nice places to live. So I've seen it as an opportunity. But knowing that we didn't have an influx of cash from outside investors, that we want to do this ourselves. And so we got uncomfortable. We bought the properties with our lines of credit, and then we didn't raise any money for capital improvements. So we were really using resources for the improvements, and including credit cards. And I just kept saying, we'll pay it down, and we have since. But there was a number of years where it was cash has come in from the cash flow from the rentals, but the money's going right back out for the next purchase and the next renovation. So it's all about what your comfort level is to see how aggressively that you're truly going to get with it.
Yes. Okay. So was the discomfort, was that more from the, oh my gosh, we have all this credit out there now, and we have these payments that we're bringing on ourselves? What was the discomfort?
I think that, just that in itself, that there are times where, we were, how much money is on this card if I'm going to get groceries? And I'd pull it up and look, say, okay, you're good. But there was lots of times where we've had those monthly budget meetings, and we're saying, okay, when are we going to pay these down? I thought you said after this one, you're going to stop. So, that's kind of, just the discomfort of not knowing. And again, there's a lot of, real estate's wonderful because you're fixing up an investment. and you can drive by it and you can see it. People live there, and the cash flow's coming in. But again, if you're going to buy a few and just that's fine. But if you want to continue to grow, you either need to have capital from outside partners, or you essentially are constantly reinvesting those resources from the cash flow back into the properties. We're now at a position where we're still working. We're still turning units over quite a bit. We have 5 guys that we pay on a routine basis, on a weekly basis. But there's now so much more cash flow coming in that there's much there's the reserves that we have now, and all those other things that you definitely want to have if you're going to have a large amount of properties.
Yeah, and if you want to get ahead, I mean, there's always that. I mean, a lot of us hear that risk and reward and everything, but it's calculated risk. It's not just flippant risk, but in that putting yourself in the uncomfortable moment, in order to advance yourself. You can't go for it. This is what I don't understand about a lot of people and their thinking is like, how do you think you're going to go forward if you're comfortable? Like, you got to step into the moment of discomfort if you want to go anywhere in life.
Right, and we've been smart too. We've surrounded ourselves with really passionate people and knowledgeable people. We have a great financial planner, and yes, he'd love for me to put more money through his agency to invest in the stock market. But he knows what we're passionate about, what our comfort levels is. So he advises us to max out our 401ks at both of our employers, and mine's a relatively conservative approach. That's just the fund that we're in, and where my wife can be a little bit more aggressive. And then in between, we have the real estate. We have a great CPA and team there, and accountant that makes sure that everything we're doing is kosher, and it's also that we're accounting for all the revenues and the expenses. So it's always about surround yourself with people that have other skill sets, so that way you can make sure you're not missing something.
It really is. I always feel like there's always something more to learn, and sometimes I don't know if you've experienced this, but sometimes I've learned something. I've learned a couple of things recently that I'm just like, oh, if we would have known that a year and a half ago, that would have been so different. So,
Right.
but you don't know that, like you said, unless you're in the pools with other people that are pushing it and have other expertises. You can't
Right.
do anything.
Yeah, and just this year, even at the time this past summer, I sat back and reflected about, buying a duplex is wonderful, or buying a 4 unit's wonderful. It really is. But we've had 32 closings in 3.5 years. And I said, wow, if I could take that 32 and shrink that down to a much smaller number, but the number of units I'm buying at any given point was much larger. So I went down and went to a boot camp down in Baltimore, Maryland for Rod Cleve's multifamily boot camp. It's been fantastic. And again, comfort level was he was talking about a coaching program, and I said, well, I already have all these assets, and do I really need coach? But I was like, I do, because I was very unfamiliar with the concept of syndication, and I needed to say, even though I'm 40 years old and I have had success, I still need to continue to educate myself and get uncomfortable. And so that was just something recently we did. But again, that's a larger financial commitment. So I called my wife and talked her through the plan and why I thought it was a really good thing for our family and also for the business. And she agreed 100%. And now we hold each other accountable to make sure that we're seeing the good returns from that coaching program.
That's right, man. My husband and we went to a seminar. Just as a little side note, we went to a seminar. I highly recommend if you have a spouse, and even if they're not interested, or a life partner, whatever it is, that person that you are sharing life with, take them to the seminars, take them everywhere you are going, even if they don't show any sign of interest. But my husband, he went to a seminar that I was interested in, and that was a real estate guy seminar back in September. And he didn't understand. Now, we come from residential real estate, and so that was his first aha, and he started to understand it, and he really liked it's such a different group of people, and just lots of camaraderie and lots of the ethics really seem a lot stronger than residential real estate. But all that to say, like, just having him go, he was able to experience this and have his eye. He was like, okay, now I see what you've been telling me about. Now I see why you are on this path and why you don't want to do residential anymore. And then we went to Rod Cleve in January, and we had been toying with, this will be my Rod Cleef plug, which I don't usually do, but
Yeah.
we were toying with, okay, we know we need a coaching program because we're a husband and wife team and we love each other and we want to continue to have a healthy, thriving marriage. And so, we're trying to figure out what coaching program should we go with. There are lots of really great ones out there. And we both agreed, like, we've got to make this, we've got to take this step. We've got to invest in ourselves, in our dreams, and hold each other accountable. So I love that. It is such a great, I'm just smitten with the program and I adore Rod. Like, he's been a powerfully positive influence in our lives. Even our kids. Do your kids ever watch?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's not just about real estate. It's about mindset and goals. And I just had a high performance call last evening. And it's constant education, but it's not just real estate, education. It's about mindset and focus on yourself and your family. And yeah, I'm just blessed to have that part of our business model right now.
Yeah, and the people that you meet are just phenomenal, like you.
Thank
uh,
you.
so let's just talk about this, that whole husband and wife element. How does that work? Do you guys, have you split roles and responsibilities? Are you equally involved in the process, or and what are some of those hurdles that you've overcome as a couple?
Yeah. So, we have 4 kids and 3 very young kids, and both have very demanding W-2 jobs, and we both love our W-2 jobs. And so things move so fast, and as far as the real estate and the kids, and it's 9 o'clock at night, and you're like, oh, hello, good to
Right.
see you today. Because there's times that she leaves here at 5:30 in the morning, and she's driving halfway across the state, and she gets back at 6. And so early on, we had discussed everything. What's the right property? What's the right look? What's the finishes? What's the design? And then it got to the point, once we knew that, I went pretty aggressive, and I'd be like, I need you at a closing. But we had that understanding that she didn't need to be involved in looking at the property or the underwriting the deal. She is, as long as it fit that early criteria. And there's
Ways
a,
going about things.
right, because I'll just, there things come up, and in the hot markets, you got to be able to jump on things very quickly, and to be able to sit there and say, well, what do you think? Well, you like the backyard? It's so, as long as it fit a certain investment criteria and it was kind of in that wheelhouse, now it was fine. Just go ahead and make it happen, George, and tell me when the closing is. And then once we own the property, if I wasn't sure of how we wanted to redo the kitchen or lay out this or that, I'd bring her own location and she would give us direction, because me, I'd be like, well, it's very simple. I'll just do it here. And she would always come in and provide a better perspective how we use the space and how to make it more attractive for, future tenants. And then we also, as we started growing and bringing in partners in some of our deals, buying a mixed use property with like a restaurant or a brewery, or those go really outside of our normal investment criteria. So those conversations would be had and analyzed to the nth degree before I would move forward with those things. But at this point, she knows I'm passionate about it. She allows me time to vet and to just discuss some of the challenges I'm having with different things, or work with some of the contractors that report to us every week. And she's a sounding board for those things. She's really involved in leadership training, and so she provides them down to me, and also our operations manager, Ben. She provides some of those resources to him, but that's what she's passionate about. So we found that niche for her, and also some of the marketing and some of the messaging out in the community and what we want our message to be. She's been very, very vocal and involved in those pieces, which from a social media's perspective, I'm very elementary, and she comes in and provides her level of expertise in those areas. And I have my skill sets in areas, and she has hers, and it works out really, really well.
That's nice. It's really nice when it sounds like you guys have a lot of mutual respect and really a clear understanding of skills and strengths and go for this, or wait. So that's great, and that's really green. Like you said, you have to have that trust in your partner in order to say, we got to jump on this deal or we're going to lose it.
And then from the goals perspective, we still talk goals. What are the goals? How many more here in this market? Are we looking at a development project? Are we looking at another state or market? So we constantly have conversations about those, and she's holding me in check to make sure that we are working towards those. Hey, where are we at with this? Where are we at with that? So that's
Okay.
always a very positive thing.
I'm going to ask the question that I could hear a lot of people who are listening to this say, really? Uh-huh. Do you take it when she asks you and holds you, accountable? Do you take it with a smile on your face? How is it, how do you posture your attitudes in order to receive each other well? Or does that, I mean, some people are very healthy and thriving. And so I'm not suggesting that you guys are not, but I can hear so many couples and partnerships saying like, ah.
No, I know, sometimes, I tend to get defensive. And I think if she was in this, I think if she was in this conversation, she'd be able to confirm that. But, I think, it's, we always put things in perspective that we've discussed these goals. We've agreed to them. And sometimes I get stuck in the weeds or get side distracted with another opportunity, another shiny object over here, another over here. So she keeps me grounded, and I know that's her thing, and I'm really comfortable with that. I may not sometimes like it right away, but I reflect, and normally I'm the one to say sorry. I was short with you, or didn't respond in the manner you would have liked. So, but that's that comes after 10 years of marriage of knowing when to say you're sorry.
But I will speak to that. You got to go through those ups and those downs in marriage. We're going on 14 years this year of marriage, and you really see the blessings that come with sticking through, because there are always times where it could have fallen apart for anybody in any marriage. and
Absolutely.
and so like when you stick it out and you've got a decade or longer, like you can really say, okay, we're gonna get through this. It's gonna be okay. I'm like you. My husband, he holds my, I would say he holds my ankles so I can live in the clouds and he stays grounded. But
Right.
sometimes I get a little cranky. That's what we call it. You can get a little cranky that, he's telling me my idea is too, up in the clouds, and I'll be like, come on, get off the ground a little bit. There's
Right. There's a balance there. Yeah, absolutely.
and that's one of those nice things. I don't think that we could be successful if we didn't have that balance, that complementary. But yeah, I have to go back and say I'm sorry quite a bit. It's just how it
Absolutely.
goes.
That's it.
Oh my.
And I just said, with this coronavirus, and it's as scary as it is for a lot of people. You can truly understand how blessed you are with a strong marriage. If you're stuck in a home, your home with your spouse, and it's a good test. And I tell you, it's just been wonderful. So, beside the fact that we're stuck in the house. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, but it is, and I'm hoping that this really strengthens a lot of people within in every capacity. One of my hopes through this pandemic situation is that some people live in so much fear of stepping out of their comfort zone within their careers or passions or things like that. It's like, well, if the sky's falling out there, maybe take these crazy steps in your own life and do the thing that you're passionate about. So,
Absolutely.
wow. Um, well, I'm like so grateful for your time. What a fun conversation. Are there any tips that you would say? Who, how Rod always says, "Ask me how I know."
Yeah. So, early on, you know, we were doing everything we could to, save money, but also have a nice product. So, some of the earlier missteps were, I was buying appliances on Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace, and driving around all over the place and buying these used appliances and trying to put them in the units. And half the time they didn't work, and half the time I needed to scrub them up. So, now we just buy them brand new, put them in. You never have to worry about it, and you walk away. So again, focusing on the pennies instead of the dollars, was an early misstep. My operations manager, he has a toolbox full of keys. So one of the early things too, we should have done a master key program where, all the properties are all keyed relatively the same. When tenant moves out, get them rekeyed. But again, we would be able to have one master key for all the places. So it's poor guy. He couldn't even wear them all on one keychain if he wanted, and he's a pretty big guy. But it's a lot. But those are two early things. Um, and the other thing too that I would say that would recommend was, you know, look at collaborating, look at, partnering with people that have similar mindsets. We didn't do that until we were in about 2.5 years in, and I didn't have enough resources to take down a 5-unit property, and I partnered with a couple guys, and everybody goes, "Why are you doing that? Why are you bringing other people in?" And since then, I've done it with, I think, 7 or 8 different individuals and formed different LLCs. And I said, "Listen, I'd rather have a percentage of something than 100% of nothing."
Yeah.
So just
Yeah.
be mindful of that, and be open to it, and don't just go jump into a partnership with anybody you don't necessarily have a relationship with. It would be more of make sure they have similar visions of how they want their business or their asset to be run.
There is absolutely there's good material out there on partnerships. You could check out Rod Cleef. You could check out Michael Blanc if you're listening. Like, definitely do your homework before you jump into any partnership at all, because just like a just like relationships, right? Like,
That's
people,
it.
you got to vet somebody first before you marry them. And being in a partnership is like being in a marriage. And just like unfortunate divorces can go nasty, ending a partnership can become really nasty, and you don't want to find yourself in that situation. So definitely make sure you know who you are partnering with. Um,
Absolutely.
that is so great. Well, George, thank you again for your time and sharing a bit of your story and giving us some nuggets, and helping everybody grow so much. We
Hey, you're
appreciate it.
welcome. You're welcome. Good luck, everybody. And like I said, continue to listen to podcasts, and do reading, and just go to conferences, educate yourself, and get off the couch. Paralysis by analysis. So get out there and make it happen.
I love that. And yeah, definitely make sure that you are getting out to conferences. When you're out meeting people and breaking bread, some of the people that I love the most are like, and have the best relationships, are the ones that when I'm like sitting there at breakfast, and my husband just knows I do this now. He's known that.
Yeah, I've went to that boot camp in Baltimore. I've have tons of connections now. The one gentleman from New York, he came down and visited us, a few weeks after that event in our market, and he liked Pittsburgh, but he wanted to see our little sub market here in Greensburg, and he came out and he fell in love with it. And I had a deal on the table that I could have done myself. I said, "Would you like to be part of this with me?" And it's been great. Now we have another 10 unit under contract as well, because we have very similar philosophies as far as what our assets should look like, and it's great. We're staying in constant communication with him, checking, make sure his and his family's doing well during this. And I've only known him a few months, but it feels like I've known him for a long time.
And that is exactly how it goes. Like, okay, so I know I already said we're supposed to say goodbye, but you brought up such a good point. I can't. Like,
Yeah,
you're willing to give up a slice of the pie. You could have taken it down on your own, but because you chose to share, now you have more. Now you have more, and people really need to wrap their heads around that. Like, if you want to hold on to something and own it yourself, that's great, but you're limiting yourself when you're sharing, and breaking bread, and you're sharing your assets with the right partners and everything. You're able to grow and do so much more. It's really
we
important.
just we just did that. I had 5 properties under contract for a closing in April, and this is weeks before the coronavirus pandemic. And I just said, I could do all these myself, but it'd probably be good for us to partner up with some folks. And one I already had with my operations manager. So this would be our second property we've done together. And the other one is with somebody I'm managing his assets. But now that'll free up so much more cash for us. So that way, if an opportunity presents itself because of this challenge that everybody's facing, now we're much more liquid to be able to capitalize on those opportunities. So kind of, after the fact was a really, really smart decision.
That is really great. Well, when you guys are out at seminars and everything, and you're sitting there for your breakfast, and you see somebody alone, you just say, "Hey, come join me," and you just keep doing that, and you break bread, and leads to really great conversations, great relationships, and man, so exciting. I like that we have like 5 different goodbyes in this because everyone produces something good.
I could talk all day about real estate, my family, and collaborating. That's just something I'm extremely passionate about.
It's a great thing. Well, everybody, you are just one decision away from changing your life. So go make the right decision right now.
Thanks so much for joining me for another episode of Ask Me How I Know. My guests are the most humble successes, so be sure to show them your appreciation by rating this episode 5 stars, which sounds silly, but let's be real. Ratings, likes, and shares, they take no time at all, but make all the difference in the world, if only to boost morale. Also, since I don't spend time on the how and why they got into investing, be sure to check out the show notes to get to know more about today's guests, including other podcasts they've been on that has a more traditional format that will give other details about their investment journey. It'll also tell you things like the most influential person in their life and what they're reading right now, as well as how to connect with them. And please, subscribe and rate Ask Me How I Know so it reaches other listeners like you. Until next time, go find your freedom.